Boom, and I'm gonna set your audio. Talk, baby, talk.
All right, I'm talking.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
sounds good to me. Okay.
All right. Well,
pour
I'm
my
going to move it a
Christmas
little bit
wine.
closer.
And,
Oh, absolutely. Day drinking. I have my Christmas coffee.
This is the Australian way.
Absolutely.
It's
Oh, you got
midday
your license.
in
Congratulations,
Australia.
my friend. I'm very happy for you. Very happy for you. All right, guys. So here we go. All right. Now that we are well, just big congratulations for the autistic pal in the chat. One of my friends over here. Love you, pal. Very happy. Hope you're having a good holiday season. Is it good?
It tastes like wine.
That works.
It'll taste the same. It'll taste the same.
Oh, fabulous.
Well,
fabulous.
Merry Christmas, Kay. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Oh, well, I'm very happy to be here with you. And it is Christmas Eve for you at this present moment.
It is.
We want to know, what are you drinking? I know this isn't a bruise and bullshit, but what are we drinking tonight?
It's called Elephant in the Room.
Ain't that the truth? And then I am drinking Hearty Holiday
sweetie,
Brew Coffee.
You're drinking joy. Look at the cup. Like, you're drinking joy.
I can't read.
Loser. All right, let's kick off.
All right, let's do it. All right, guys. So here we are. And I'm just going to get into character. All right, let's do this. Live from Anti-Canada News, I'm Harvey Johnson. Our top story tonight, 2 ambisexual men are being held hostage at Nakatomi Plaza, and I have the privilege of speaking to these 2 men after the fact, and they have assured me that this only has continued to bolster their need to be dominated in bed. I now turn it to these wonderful broken men. Thanks, Harvey. Welcome back, you ho-ho-hos. Turn up those eggnogs and stuff those stockings, because you can't stop this podcast from coming down your chimney this holiday season. Yippee those Kayes and get ready to Hans those Grubers. It's your favorite naughtily nice duo looking to make it rain deer in the new year. I'm your hoity-toity good boy who lost his Game Boy. Your peppermint mocha who looking to keep you warm by the fire. Your baritone who's lost his phone. It's Movie Man Opinions, aka K, aka Keegan, or other things there. So yeah, welcome all you fabulous people. I hope that you all are enjoying your holiday season over there, just making sure that you're nice and warm by the fireplace. I hope that you and your loved ones have a wonderful holiday season. And now it's time for your present. Let's open up this bag of wonders. Let's see how this goes. A joy to the world and a pain in my ass. You've heard of Elf on the Shelf. Well, get ready for a hoe in the snow, a married man with an Australian, a laugh with a naff, a whore from El Salvador, a papa with trauma, the man, the myth, the legend. It's NAFCOR.
Hello. Yeah, I never know how to follow your intros anymore, but if you guys are watching, obviously this will be on audio and on video. But if you guys are watching the stream, you'll be seeing our beautiful, ugly Christmas
Holiday
sweaters.
sweater.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Beautiful holiday sweaters. It's actually summer in Australia, so recognize the amount of pain I go through to look good for you guys. And check out the nails. They're so pretty. Like, I got my little Christmas nails happening. Like, look at that.
My goodness
snowmen
gracious,
and stuff
those are
on there.
gorgeous.
Let me get my face
gotta
out of it.
Post some to social media.
Yeah.
We'll post on social media our outfits, because I feel like that'll be good. We'll post them on our Instagram.
Yeah,
because I do feel that we these outfits are deserving of such a treatment.
They are. And when it gets hot, I have a surprise under here as well, so don't worry.
Oh, true, absolutely. This one I do know what's underneath, so that'll be beautiful. But
Excuse me?
Well,
what kind of woman do you think I am?
Don't be surprised.
Wow.
One who's shown me everything. And so
from the internet I've been ousted. Wow.
Hey, listen, man, if you think that we are a no holds bar, our shame is the internet's to behold. Like, have you listened to half of the shit we've said on this podcast? the amount of out of the pocket we are is just like it's insane.
I very much agree.
Absolutely. Well, shout out also to our boy David, who was very excited to hear what we have to say about the movie. And as well to all the fabulous people in chat. We had a wonderful beginning in doing these things there. So we love you guys, and we are very excited to bring you our long awaited holiday special. Now, Neff, what the hell are we doing here?
What the hell are we doing here? Actually, I don't know, man. What do we do here, bro?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit. We are available on all the various podcasting platforms, such as Spotify, as well as Apple Podcast, as well as, just live and on demand on YouTube, baby. Live and demand on YouTube. You know it, you know it. And make sure that you stick around by the end where we will announce the next film that you could check out this week. So you can see the conversation next week. Like we're going to announce it at the end of this episode. So if you want to get ahead of your friends and know what we're covering for our last one with the films at the very end of the year, you'll know and you'll be able to prepare for it. And it's a doozy. It's it really I'll
It's
tell
actually
you what,
Fubar.
Nice. I like that. Now if you continue going on with this, Neff, what the hell are we doing here on your Christmas Eve, my Christmas Eve's Eve?
Christmas Eve's Eve. That's beautiful. Well, at One with the Films, which is where you have found yourself if you're listening or watching this, welcome. You would know if you're a long-time listener exactly what you're in for. However, for the uninitiated, who may have spontaneously stumbled across a little corner of the internet for a cute little episode of One with the Films, you are joining us today for an episode of the Weekly Watch List. And the Weekly Watch List has this cheeky little gimmick where in every episode ever, someone is watching one of someone else's favorite films for the first time. And then we hang out here and we talk about it all afternoon. So it definitely is the place to be if you're working through that pesky watch list or if you're looking to add a few items to it. Either way, you're very welcome. We are so happy to have you. Merry Christmas. We love you so much. Oh, I burped into the microphone, so another one for you. That's
You're
how much
welcome.
I love you. I burped twice.
Absolutely.
The second one's actually only for subscribers.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
if not,
so
just
fix it.
if you're not subscribed, then skip the second one.
Rescind
Yeah.
that burp. Now, as we go on, we have a wonderful film that I actually brought in. This was one that when we were thinking about favorite films and things there, Naf was talking about, oh, we should do a holiday special. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it would be really funny to do Die Hard. And then Naf looks at me, he's like, yeah, that'd be great. And I'm like, you haven't seen it, have you? And he's like, nope. And I'm like, perfect. And then once again, you had the ability to just coincidentally have not seen this film, start a podcast, and be in time to watch this movie for the first time in a 4K re-release in one of the world's largest IMAXs.
Yeah, so it's the largest screen in the Southern Hemisphere, IMAX in Melbourne. It was the 35th anniversary, 4K remaster. My first watch of Die Hard.
Whenever I come over there, I'm gonna be upset because I feel like it'll be under construction or something.
We're gonna time it. If you're not gonna be able to get here for Dune 2, but for Dune 3, they're gonna have to do a trilogy. I'm hoping that they do.
Oh my god, that would be great.
For Dune 2, I'm hoping they do like a double feature. So we watch Dune 1 and then Dune 2. So I'm gonna do that in March, and then yeah, fingers crossed that they do the same thing for the trilogy. If we time your visit with that, then that'd be great. But the cinemas in LA aren't all that bad either. Like when I was there, we went and saw John Wick at the Chinese theater. That was huge screen. That was awesome theater.
The Chinese theater is one of the few theaters, like besides the seat situation that the seats are old, but other than that, the experience of going, it's so cool to go to the Chinese in general. But the Chinese theater is just gigantic. I had a tradition with a friend of mine where we would go to see all, like once I moved out here, ever since Spider-Man No Way Home, because that was the only theater we could ironically get opening night tickets to. And that started tradition for both of us that we were like, despite us both having AMC passes, we were like, let's go to the Chinese to see Marvel movies opening night. Then we stopped because they aren't good. And so we ended up but we saw the Batman there. We saw things there, and then you and I saw John Wick 4 there,
Yep.
and that was incredible. But away from the point, we're watching Die Hard, motherfuckers. And so now, Nav, would you like to tell us a little bit before we get into the why and before we get into a lot of the details surrounding this film? Would you like to give us some fun facts, spill little secrets from the inner mechanisms of your mind?
Well, I didn't necessarily find them in the inner mechanisms of my mind, but through Google searches.
Okay.
That's my reference list.
All right.
Google.
All right. All right.
I once actually had a teacher get angry at me when I wrote my reference list for a report that I was writing. And I wrote that Google was one of the sources, and they were like, "You didn't get anything from Google. You used Google to find the sources." I was like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, I'm 9 years old, dude. I thought Google was the information. Everyone told me to Google it. I found the answer when I Googled it.
Was just
Sorry, I wrote
Google
Google was my...
guy. Just
exactly.
some random Cockney guy, because that's the accent I can do. Oi, listen here. It just
Oi.
sort of... Oi.
Well, let me tell you what I found on my reference.
Please.
That is Google. So, among the $28 million spent, one can only imagine how many of those dollars were spent on not one, not two, but the 17 undershirts in various stages of distress that our hero cop wears throughout the film. But not to worry, they made it all back and then some, landing at over $140,000 at the box office, showcasing once again that studios should stop spending so much money on their films. Released in 1988 and based on a novel of the same or a similar name, and directed by John McTiernan, the director who directed many other classics during the 80s action hero renaissance era, if you will. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. That blew my mind. I didn't expect that this was going to be on the Academy Awards. In that, it was including Best Sound, Best Editing, Best Effects for Sound Effects Editing, and Best Effects for Visual Effects. It has an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb from nearly 1 million ratings, and it's the 3rd most rewatched film at Christmas time with a 4.1 out of 5 from users on Letterboxd. Lead actor Bruce Willis poured blood, sweat, and tears and hearing into this film, stating he did a lot of his own stunts, and one of those stunts actually caused him permanent hearing loss in his left ear, as well as a near miss on a premature ending of his aliveness when he jumped off a 5-story building and nearly missed the landing zone. He was saying that the stunt director, the stunt choreographer, looked at that and laughed and was like, "Haha, that's funny. You nearly died." And he's like, "I wasn't laughing. I nearly died." The book, however, was actually a sequel to another book by the same writer, Roderick Thorp, called The Detective, which was adapted into a film starring Frank Sinatra in 1968. And so Fox was actually contractually obligated to offer Frank Sinatra the chance to don a bloody tank top, and he respectfully declined, as by the time they were making this movie, he was in his 70s. So $5 million later, nice and cheap, we found John McClane.
If only studios would continue to do that with their aging movie stars.
What, like not put them in movies anymore? Like go to Harrison Ford and say, "Hey, we're doing a new Indiana Jones. It's not you."
Would you like not to be him?
Yeah.
Like,
I think the downside is because he is like 70 in the latest one. The same scenario, I think they probably went to him and were like, "Hey, we're going to do a new Indiana Jones. We're contractually obligated to offer you the role and we can't recast until you say no." And he said, "I'm going to do it."
I'm in.
Did you say yes without any questions? No, I asked one question. What was it? How much?
How much? Show me the money. And but
I
now
love that,
as we go on,
Harrison Ford is the Nikola Jokic of the movie industry. You'll understand that if you're a basketball fan.
I'm not, so I don't.
It's okay. Someone will get it.
Someone will get it there.
Someone will get it. So that's some fun facts on Die Hard. And going into this film, we generally talk about, before we go in, what we knew about it before watching. And we'll go a little bit into, this is a film that you brought, Kay, that you felt I needed to see. And we have so many options for Christmas films when we get to a Christmas special. And there's big conversations around this one in particular. I felt with this similar to I felt with a lot of the classic movies, that though I haven't seen it, I kind of have. It's been homaged and parodied to no end. So I thought, I'll have seen it. I've seen most of this film through clips and everything else in my life, I still actually left with a couple of little surprises in the story, which I thought was pretty interesting. Basic little things that I didn't know was going to happen. But yeah, besides that, I really didn't have much connection to this film at all. People talking about it being the best Christmas story. It was a film that I never got to. And one of my best friends, it's his favorite Christmas film as well. And I actually took him as a surprise to watch it at IMAX. I was like, hey, keep this night clear. It's at this time, meet me at this place. We're going to go. And he walked in.
He didn't know you were taking him?
Nah, we sat down in IMAX. And then as it starts, he's like, oh man, like, is it like a long film? I was like, I don't really know. Like, it didn't have like a lot of buzz behind it. Like, it should be all right though. I'm pretty keen for it. I reckon you'll like it. And then it started. And like, literally the first frame of the film, he literally just like bumps me and he's like, fuck yeah. I was like, yeah. And so it was great for me to take him to the film he's been wanting me to watch for like 10 years.
And if that isn't the spirit of Christmas,
if it isn't,
what if that's the spirit of giving? Look at that.
Exactly.
But with that, Die Hard is one of those films that is just one of those quintessential 80s action movies that, I am constantly sort of blown away by with the standpoint of, you look at a lot of the 80s films, like a lot of the 80s kind of action hero genre, whether it's Stallone, Schwarzenegger, like that sort of Rambo, Predator, all that stuff there, which obviously, the director was involved in with some of those, so not unfamiliar to the genre. It when I think I was in middle school when I first it was my freshman year of high school when my parents gave me this film. I want to think it was for Valentine's Day, out of all things, because my parents would give me like these little Valentine's Day baskets or things there because I didn't have a girlfriend, and so it was a thing of going. They gave this like little thing. They would always like include like a DVD or something, and one of them was Die Hard, and I hadn't seen it before, so I was like, okay, let me see it. And I remember because at that time, like all the action movies would kind of not parody this, but they would take the same premise of like a fixed location. And when I watched this movie, I was like, oh, are they going to like travel to different areas? And when I realized the film was all going to take place in one area, I brought it up to my dad, and my dad was like, yeah, that was the first time that was like done in a movie. Like it was like kind of like as an action movie, that was sort of like one of the first major things to kind of do that premise. And he told me a funny story about a film that tried to follow it up, and I'll tell that. I guess now's probably a good time to tell it, but it was like, apparently there was a film that came out after this because all the studios wanted to ride the success of Die Hard.
Naturally. That is the way, right?
That is the way.
Yep. If something's good, don't let it be good. Take the idea and beat it.
Do it again.
And beat it until we hate it.
Beat it to death. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Stereotypical superhero films now. But I don't mean to, I am literally wearing a Winter Soldier sweater. Like, I don't mean to be, anyway, hate to be bah humbug on this, but now the thing was, my dad and my mom saw this, we're sitting in a theater at some point, and my dad said it's the unintentionally funniest trailer he's ever seen. They're watching a movie, and I guess it was like Pierce Brosnan or somebody, and there was this movie where they were talking about like, the terrorists had a plan. They planned for all these details, and it was like a ship, right? Like it was like a big ship, and it was sort of a Die Hard premise of, oh, they're going to take over the ship. And it was like, you're seeing all this. I think Tommy Lee Jones is in the movie, and it's like they're taking over the ship and things there. And they said, and there's only one problem. They forgot about the cook. And my dad and my mom lost it. They lost.
They forgot about
and you see,
the
like,
cook.
Pierce Brosnan or somebody like that in just this, cook's outfit with like a gun, and it's like, oh my god, I've never seen this movie, but I'm like, that was iconic. So what I knew, one of the things, like, I ever since I saw this movie, I thought it was very, very good. And I've always kind of liked it, and I always would maintain I'm part of the Die Hard is a Christmas movie and fuck all of you who are wrong crowd. And
I suppose, what do you think is the criteria for a film to be a Christmas film? Does it just have to take place at Christmas
Well,
time?
I think we'll get into it because there is a difference. There is the because I
Films at
started
Christmas and Christmas films?
exactly. There are films at
Mm.
Christmas, and then there are Christmas films because I used to do for myself a not so Christmas movie marathon, which was any film
So
that kind of
cringe.
had to do with Christmas I would watch. So like The Godfather was one of them, like various like Iron Man 3, like various other ones like that. And then because there is a difference between films that take place at Christmas and a film that is a Christmas film. There are two actual 80s, I think one might be 90s. I forget. Is Lethal Weapon 90s?
Honestly, couldn't tell you, dude. I haven't
But
seen it.
anyway, Lethal Weapon might be next year because Lethal Weapon is also takes place weirdly at Christmas.
Well, we should do a like, as we build up to Christmas, we could do like ask the fans to help us pick the movie and just let them submit, and we can do like a spin on the hat. We'll grab all the ones that either one of us hasn't seen before, either both me or you, put them all in a list and just let it spin the wheel. Do you remember when we did that
Love it.
with our Spielberg
Schindler's
films
List.
and it landed on Schindler's List?
I literally like if you listen to that recording, it was on our boy episode. If you listen to that, you could hear the moment where we spin the list, and Naf was like, "Oh, we like Kay's been wanting to show me a lot of these like Spielberg films, so we just put a lot of them on there." He spins it, and I literally, as I was saying, there's only one film on here that would be a little problematic if we got, and then it lands on Schindler's List, and I go, "Oh no, that was it."
Well,
Just
one of the things that I found really interesting is I was looking at this Letterboxd list that they created called the most obsessively rewatched films at Christmas, and they've taken like actual like the data to determine this. And you've got a bunch of films up there, and Die Hard is number 3 on there, as we were saying in the fun facts.
that's insane.
There are a bunch of other ones here that blew my mind as well, though. You've got like Little Women, is on there at number
Shit, I guess
24.
that's right.
There was another, the Star Wars Holiday Special, number 73. La La Land is number 71. You
Yeah,
have
I guess that's
Goodfellas at 98.
See, not so Christmas movies.
But it's one of the most rewatched around here. And there's another. Was Little Women a remake?
Yeah, there's been a lot of Little Women's.
Wow. So the Greta Gerwig one is number 24, and then there's one from 1994 that's number 84, and Lethal Weapon's number 83. So here's a bunch of films. You want to check it out? Just go to Letterboxd's account on Letterboxd. They've got the lists there. It's really cool to see all of these different Christmas films, of which I have seen like 5.
Well, exactly. So we're gonna have plenty for next year. But for now, as we go with this, one thing that I want to make sure that people know is obviously this movie, as you said, is very well loved and very well, I suppose clearly it's very well rewatched. So I don't think it's that hard of a stretch for those of you who haven't seen it, but just so you know, we are not doing a like play by play, but we are going into spoilers. We're not going to be avoiding them. You can always come back later if you want to go in fresh, but feel free to stick around even if you haven't seen the film, as it's sure to be an interesting conversation regardless. Another thing I wanted to mention on a standpoint of what did we know before watching, there is a fascinating documentary, great series, highly recommend checking it out if you haven't. There's a film, Netflix has a series called The Movies That Made Us. And they take a lot of these films that apparently were production nightmares or movies that nobody believed in but became household successes. And Die Hard is one of them. They did one on there, and that one is fascinating because it is interesting to hear. I don't remember some of the specifics, but I remember being fascinated with the stories of the screenwriter talking about how a lot of the humor that came out of John McClane's character and Bruce Willis was the fact that Bruce Willis wanted to try being a little funny and things there. So it was like an organic process that as they were filming, they were like, I think it'd be really interesting to kind of go with the, lean into that. So highly recommend everybody going and checking out that because that it was just a very simple, easy watch.
Cool.
Very well made, very well put together.
Yeah, I think definitely something cool to check out. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about when I was looking at the fun facts before, one of the things that I saw was that Alan Rickman helped come up with the look and the feel of the character of Hans
Yes.
Gruber. He put a lot of like himself in there, and he also was saying that he didn't see him as the villain, which we'll dive into when we start talking about some of the characters here too. But let's get into the conversation a bit here, Kay. We both have some things that we wanted to talk about here, which we've compiled into a few topics as we do. I want to kick off talking about the location and also how that impacted the action within the film and the special effects. So like we've got this really grassroots stuck in one location. I love these kinds of films. They just showcase a level of creativity that you don't really get when you're going from place to place to place to place to place. Like my favorite film of 2023 was shot in one hotel room, and it's a great film. You guys should check it out. Sanctuary.
There is just a very unique opportunity when you do place something in one location to be able to do a lot of creative stuff. I mean, you look at even like, again, as you said, drama examples like Sanctuary or
Sanctuary is a romantic comedy. Thank you very much.
It's NAFCOR. It has drama in there somewhere. But
hey, all romantic comedies have
in there somewhere.
Hey, that's nice. It actually does. It's filled with daddy issues.
Oh, there we go. That's it. And so it's not Keegan Core, I'll tell you that. But that's like it probably is. I need to watch it. That's definitely one of those that's there. But with Die Hard, with these various different films and these things, what I love about the action of this film, that location is so great. You can actually go like the building is here in LA, and it's such you can see it as you saw in some of those shots. There are streets that you could just see it in the distance. And it is just cinematic. It's like it is that kind of building in the distance, and that drive up to it is just so cool.
Yeah,
like just a lot of those shots. It really does inspire a really cool level of cinematography because it feels like an iconic location.
Yeah, I can imagine it does, and it's not actually Nakatomi Plaza, right? The name
No,
of
I
the
think
building
it's a different name.
Yeah. So it's a real location, but a fictional location.
Fictional business.
That's the magic of film, baby. That's the magic of film.
Yeah. And so, it's one of those things that I really was fascinated by with this film. And now you want to talk about the action. Obviously, when you're watching this film, I feel like especially nowadays, it's tough because like with the 80s, it's kind of they either were trying to do some of the last days of like old visual effects and it looks terrible now, or it's all practical and it looks great.
Yeah.
Like either it's either or. And this one, fortunately, I feel follows into the latter camp of they do so much in camera that you're actually almost amazed.
Yeah.
Again, there's stuff that I want to know how it was done, like the explosion at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, did they
do you want to know how it was done?
Building? Yeah.
He jumped off a 5-story building when they blew it up.
And was a helicopter like blew up as well? Like that whole
I don't know what they did with the helicopter, but it all looks legit. I reckon probably a miniature maybe for the helicopter. I would love to see behind the scenes for this. However, one of the things I was thinking in particular with the action and the special effects here, they spent like, what was it? Like, I think like 10% of the budget they spent on glass, which makes sense. God. They're blowing it up all the time.
And stepping
there is a feeling within films like this when you know that you're kind of really at a height, for example, or they've done a really good job of portraying that it's real, is when you get the feeling of like the willies in there, when things that are outside the body feel like they're crawling into the body and you get a bit of vertigo while you're watching a film. That's when I know.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you're absolutely right. Like when you have a film that also does that, and I think it's also great that they give you this character. Like we'll dive more into the character in a second, but like I feel like when that is embedded in the film, like it's kind of like Indiana Jones with snakes.
Yep.
It's this idea of like, oh, a pit of snakes is a challenge unto itself. It's a whole different thing when that's the phobia of your main character.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're now intertwining these very natural obstacles that this would be there anyway. This is a skyscraper, like its height is going to be a factor, but to have a character that's afraid of that makes it just that much better.
exactly. And then you also add into that something as simple as the character does not have shoes. And throughout the whole film, he does not have shoes. And when the villain recognizes that he doesn't have shoes, the response of shoot the glass, that was the most harrowing moment for me. I was like, oh my god, no. And you really feel that at the end when he kind of thinks, he's like, I'm getting a bad feeling, I think, tell my wife I love her, and those kinds of things that just worked
It's
so well.
just they make so many surprising choices in this movie that does keep it feeling fresh. It's why
Absolutely.
it's like even on rewatch, I was rewatching this movie. I'm like, this is one of the reach watch. It's like, my favorite thing about this film is that I've again, I saw it when I was in high school, and I still look at this film and I'm like, this film still works.
Yeah. Yeah.
This film just still works. Like it really has a lot of nuance. Like, sure, there's some dated 80s stuff, but overall, it actually is a little ahead of its time in
Yeah.
a lot of discussions. Like, we'll get there, but I don't want to just completely
No, it does
rush
feel
past some of our other topics, but
absolutely, but it feels a bit like when we watched Rear Window, and I was expecting it to feel like a
yes.
film from the 50s or 40s or whatever, and it does have elements of it that just are unavoidable, but for the most part, there are aspects of this that feel timeless. I'm
Yeah.
going, what, how have you done this? And we were talking before about how a lot of the action is in camera, and one of the things that I was thinking while I was watching the film and as I left was, dear God, I cannot imagine that this film was screened to audiences and unions and all of these things, and then they were like, you know what? I don't think we need regulations around safety. So, like, here's the thing, right? Like, that shot of Bruce Willis jumping off the 5-story building onto... It's just a airbag,
Like a
essentially.
bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how they stopped it. And they still do that, but you don't do that without wires and stuff these days. And
Yeah.
I can see why. And when you look at some of the action sequences in this film of somebody being pushed against a wall,
It's
is
brutal.
it's brutal. There is a weight, there is an oomph to it that films from the 70s and 80s, like, think of the Luke Skywalker kick in Return of the Jedi, right? The Force kick. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you expect to see when you think about action in the 80s. And this is not
just
that.
brutal.
Yeah. Like, if I think, actually, like, we said, this is 1988. What year was Return of the Jedi?
It was around this time, I think.
1983.
Like, it was earlier.
Yeah.
It's still close enough to be cousins. Like, you know, it's
like we're there, we're right there. And
well,
you would expect, like you said, more stuff like that, but it feels a lot of the time like people are actually punching each other and hitting each other, and there's a weight to even the sheer volume of damage that John McClane takes. McClane,
but yeah,
McClane.
yeah, you're good. You're good.
I was thinking about, there's a company in Australia called McCain, and they make potato chips.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
So
I'm hungry.
I understand. You're
Mm.
also thirsty, but that's just an eternal state of being. And I mean, you have your wine there, so enjoy. But like with your point there, there is just a brutality that this film has, and I think that there is such a cool thing with the effects, because I mean, even with the effects that I love is the car stuff that happens. There's not a lot of it, but the car stuff is so good because the location is so good. It's one of those things where I feel that this is an underappreciated thing I think in film, because you do really have like in film a lot of times you have an okay location, especially in modern films these days. They get a cool location that's cool for the wide shots, and then they don't really use it. They're just like, it's cool, it's Monaco, that's where we are now. And like maybe there's an action sequence, like they're not as innovative or inventive as I would like them to be. What I love about this one is because it feels so cinematic that you have the stuff. Like one of my favorite moments is the cop pulling up at the beginning and being like going outside, and then the body falls onto his car, and then he's like oh Jesus Christ, and then all of a sudden the car's getting shot up, but then you see it bam hit like a guardrail, like as it's backing up, and it's like, oh, that's all in camera, and then falling off of this like little area into like this kind of construction site zone. And it's like, it feels so intense. Like, you feel that anxiety and that, like, and then you have the wonderful, like, armored vehicle that, like, comes up and they're like, oh, they're gonna go over there, and they have the giant explode, like, you're seeing it crash through, like, guardrails and stuff there, and they have the explosions, and it's like, and then even that Huey helicopter coming down and going around the building, it's like everything feels so real. And when you have that intensity, I feel it lends credence to the characters in the
Mm.
situation, and the way that is presented, just it really just bolsters, you know, the action.
Absolutely.
And then and it makes the threat feel so real.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was hearing, my friend was telling me that with those attack helicopters, they actually shot that in downtown LA and they didn't get permits for it or tell people that they were going to do it. So it was just these helicopters flying, and they ended up getting noise complaints and all that kind of stuff for it because those
Oh,
things
sure.
are insanely loud.
Loud.
And I thought it was so funny how Gruber kind of knows exactly the plan that the FBI are going to follow
It's
and
so great.
uses that obviously against them. However, those characters are hilariously incompetent.
Oh, like, are you talking about all the
The FBI characters.
oh my god. So should we move on to characters? Because I know that we have a lot to say, I feel like, about characters. Or
Yeah,
is there
well, I
anything
think
else you wanted to
around
cover
about
on?
the special effects, there's lots of really great squib work.
Oh my god,
It's,
yeah.
I'm looking at that and I'm like, man, the wiring on this, and if you have to do multiple takes here, like, Jesus, like,
Well,
impressive work from whoever was
well,
doing explosions on set.
a great use of handheld cameras. Like,
Mm,
it feels intense, but it's not in that shaky cam way
yeah.
of we're trying to make it more intense than it is. It helps. Like, one of my favorites is like when there's, and also what I love, and we'll get this into the characters. I love how the direction of this film is, because all of the characters feel like they're reacting how you would in an actual situation. And it's not people trying to be too macho or not macho enough. It's like everybody's acting in a very particular way that makes everything feel so real. One of my favorite scenes is when it's like the boardroom table scene, where not when they're having the discussion, but when John's like, freeze, motherfucker, drop it, and everybody's like, no, please don't shoot, but he's buying time for his friend to come around the corner with the gun, and then but then it's on top of the table, like he's trying to scooch under the table as the guy's like, bam, bam, like, where are you going, pal?
Yeah, yeah,
And then just shooting there, and he's like, next time you have a chance to kill somebody, don't hesitate. And then just he shoots through the table. He's like, thanks for the advice.
yeah.
And, like, I feel, but the squib work on that was just like, the bullet wounds feel so brutal in this movie.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, they
It
do.
doesn't feel
Like, there's
fun.
brain matter and stuff on the back of chairs. Like, oh my god.
It feels very John Wick. Like,
Mm.
everything that hits, you feel it. Like, it's like it's intense and in kind of fun, but it's not action without the day. Like, everything that happens in the movie, all the gunshots in it, it feels very realistic to how that would go down.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you were mentioning before was sort of similar to John Wick. However, one of the things that I found I really liked about this film is that even though it drops a couple of hints of, oh, I've been a cop for 12 years and like those kinds of things, I still feel like he's out of his depth here. And he's
Yes.
having to overcome a mountain of struggles in a way that I actually watched Die Hard 2 last night, and I didn't feel that hit the same level. So it felt a little more it
An
felt a little
action
more
hero.
like, yeah, like an action hero. Where here I'm like, this is some guy. This is just some guy. I don't care if he's a cop or not. For all intents and purposes, he's a civilian who knows how to use a gun.
Exactly. Like, it's he's enough of a civilian. The cop part is just to explain that he kind of knows what he's doing, but it's not like
Yeah.
he's military. It's not like he's this, and this
Mhm.
is a good transition point into our
Absolutely,
characters.
yeah. And so moving on to characters and starting with John McClane, I think that's one of the things that really works for me with him. I don't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. And the fact that there are scenes where he's sitting there talking to himself on the border of essentially like a panic attack, going, come on, John, think. You gotta have a plan. Why you? Why you? Why does it have to be you? Oh my god! And he's sitting there freaking out, going, "What the hell am I supposed to do here?" And he does the right thing. In this film, he sees he sees clearly that he's not coming out of this. He goes, there are terrorists here, whatever's happening, we're all gonna die, this sucks. What's the right thing to do? I'm the only person who was not taken, so I could go in and take them all out one by one, like I'm playing a Hitman game or a Far Cry or something like that, but no, I'm not capable of that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sneak my way up to the roof, and I'm going to call the police. Or I'm going to find a fire alarm and set off the fire alarm so that the fire brigade comes, because I need to get somebody else here that can actually handle this, because I cannot. And it's not until the point that it goes back and back and back and back that he's against the wall when there's no other option that he then starts taking those matters.
Well, and most of it is because he's almost about to be found out. It's never him going up against the terrorist. He's always like, the terrorists are finding him in a room, and he's like, oh shit, now I gotta deal with it.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I was watching a video, I think you sent it to me, it was about Star Wars, but it was like talking about the fact of, well, we have Elizabeth in chat, Merry Christmas, pals, as well, and Merry Christmas, Elizabeth. Just as a reminder, you guys can watch us live as we record these. We tend to record them 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. So with all of those there, so just you can follow us there. But going with what you're saying, I agree. The whole vibe of it is, it feels very much, that's what I love about him, is he also you brought it up before. The whole film starts off and you can tell, he has this kind of marriage that we're kind of figuring out a little bit about. Clearly he's on a plane to go see his wife and apparently his kids. We don't know what the situation is. What I also love about this film is the way they deliver exposition is actually really, again, as you said, it's very John Wick. It's very much, we're giving you just enough to know, but we're not doing the, Chuck, how long have we been brothers?
Yes.
Like, we're doing it in a way that, like, oh, it makes sense, but he's also not going to fully tell. Like, the Argyle character was such a great way to set up the movie. I also love the way that the beginning of the movie is of like, you're not a fan of flying, huh? And you kind of wonder how the fuck is this going to play into the movie? You don't expect it really to play
so
into
good.
this.
Yeah.
But it does in such a huge way. And like, but then the whole fists with your toes. And I love even the moment.
Fist with your toes.
It also shows a very much a pre 9/11 way of flying, with him like standing up, and like, I know the air marshals and stuff, like, they can carry their weapons on them on flights, but like seeing the gun there and then being like him being like, but I love the line because it's very much the way Bruce Willis delivers it makes it feel less like a, don't worry, I'm a cop, and the audience is going to need to know that. It's very much a, nah, don't worry, I'm a cop. Hey, trust me, I've been doing it for 11 years. Like, it all is very much like, I could see somebody doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I could feel that. And that's what's such a great thing I feel this movie does.
It fits the dynamic that those characters share with one another.
And then I feel like going with that, that's what I think makes this movie work, as opposed to stuff like Stallone or Schwarzenegger. Bruce Willis feels very, it's why I love Indiana Jones as opposed to 007, because Indiana Jones and like Raiders of the Lost Ark feels very much like this guy's in over his head, and he could die.
Yeah.
Obviously, the more films that come out with him, you start to feel like they're not going to kill this guy, apparently. But like,
even when they should have in the last one.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but my feeling with Bruce Willis in this movie, though, is he starts off with this, and I know that you kind of want to talk about this, but we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but he really delivers this like everyman feeling. Like, I love when he is like talking to the fire brigade, of being like, as you were saying, like, the fire brigade's on its way, and he's like, come on, I'll kiss you Dalmatian, come on, and then it's like, no, you stupid motherfuckers, no, turn the fucking car around. Like, that whole moment is just so real. And I even love when he does talk to his wife and they have a little bit of an argument of like, are we going to have this conversation? And you could tell he's debating, should I say this? Should I not? Should I not do that? I'm going to say it. And then when she leaves, he just knocking his head against the wall, just being like, I like, like, way to go, John, way to go.
Yeah.
Uh, it's, ah, it's so great. And then, oh, God.
Well, one of the
But
things
like,
that I love with the introduction of those characters as well, particularly with Holly and with John, is when we get to, we were talking about exposition before and how they deliver information. One of my favorite ones was he's talking a little bit about that with Argyle, but not giving away too much. And also, hi George. George is in chat. One of my friends says it's one of his favorite films, but he needs to watch again. That being
and
said,
you're right.
the introduction with Argyle, I love the dynamic there of Bruce Willis' character being like, ugh, like, just shut up, dude. Like, I'm not here to talk. Yeah, just get me to the place.
Just
like, it's
drive
fine.
the car, man.
And also something about him sitting in the front of the limo. Character work, you know? It's like, oh, people
Like,
don't usually sit in the front. Like, what are you doing, man? And
yeah, like it shows a lot of it's just by giving your character those traits, it's just such a great idea. But continue.
But what I was thinking was when he goes up to the front desk, he's like, I'm here to see Holly McClane.
Oh,
And the guy's like, yeah, cool, no worries, type her name in here. He's like, cool toy. And you look at this technology, and Die Hard 2 does this as well, which is really funny, where he's like, I have to get with the times. Somebody teach me how to use a fax machine. And watching it in 2023 is the most
it's such
absurd
a funny thing.
Yeah. And he clicks the button, and he types his name, and she's not there. And then he sits, he just contemplates for a second, goes back, types G, and then he sees that she's gone back to her maiden name. And he's like, ugh. And I actually love the way that flows into the story, particularly later when Hans finds out that there's a connection between the two of them, and how I loved how well edited and snappy that scene was, where he turns around and just lifts the
and the push in of the camera.
Yep,
where
and
it's like boom.
Oh my god, I know.
Well,
it's fantastic.
This is where it goes to, and we're about to get into Hans Gruber in just a second.
Yeah.
Because I also want to talk about Hans Gruber's crew as well as a lot of supporting players. I know we want to kind of hit the big three, but that's sort of one thing I want to talk about as well, because I think it helps with the overall,
absolutely,
the detail of the film.
Yeah.
But one thing that I love about the direction of this movie and how it's written, and it's amazing to me that a lot of this stuff was sort of like, it was not as much and as we have in chat, like as David says, the music in that moment hit too. But one of my favorite things is seeing how this movie is just so well directed because everything in this film comes back.
Payoff, man. Set up and payoff.
It's one of the, if I had to put, like, this is up there with Jaws as one of the best examples of planted payoffs, of being like, okay, I said this offhand, but the Holly Gennaro thing comes back. The fact that she puts the picture frame down, it's a great character moment, but then it comes back into play later at the fact of that's how she's able to get away with the lie, because his face isn't fucking there. You know, like, it's this thing.
Argyle in the basement, it's like comes back later. Like,
there.
It all back. And even one of my favorite ones, which maybe it might be good for us to talk about, like Al, and then come back to the villains, and so we can do all the villains in one go.
I think so. Yeah.
Al talking about why he's not on the Force anymore.
Oh my god, I'm getting chills. That to me is one of the scenes that makes the movie.
Yeah, well, considering the world we live in now, where that happens a lot.
Unfortunately, a lot.
Him being, stood down or stepping away or going behind the desk because that's what he did. It just it's really sad that that's what happened, and him getting his kind of moment in the end. Well,
and just to reiterate for those who haven't seen it, like the moment there where he admits that he accidentally shot a kid that was wielding a ray gun that looked real enough.
Yeah,
and apparently, and obviously, I thought it was a very interesting thing that coming from a black man in the film, sort of things there. All right. Oh, okay. We're having the moment happen. The wife beater's coming out.
Sorry.
Look at that.
It's really hot, and a thick woolly sweater in summer in Australia just doesn't doesn't do it. But it's all right. This will be fine. This will be fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
But the moment with but I thought it was very interesting from a meta thing. Obviously, that actor famously did a ton of cop roles after I can't remember because I know he's in Family Matters and his character in there is a cop.
I only know him
Um,
from the interdimensional space cable episodes of Rick and Morty.
uh-huh.
They make all these jokes about Reginald Bell Johnson.
And yeah, well, and the thing was that that character also like in his in the same thing that Steve Urkel, Family Matters, he plays the dad in that.
Oh yeah,
And I believe and he's a cop in that as well. And so it's like this guy in the 80s was the cop. Yeah, Carl Winslow
that's him. Yeah,
was was just the go-to cop guy. Like
yeah,
he was a cop, that guy, as Darkside Divas would say, in movies. And it's actually funny in one of the deleted scenes in Avengers Endgame, you now probably will get this. One of the deleted scenes in Avengers Endgame was a thing of like when they fast forward 5 years earlier when they were like, or 5 years later, and they were gonna introduce the Hulk, like as Smart Hulk. One of the scenes was you see Carl Winslow as a cop on the radio talking about how there's a fire up there, and it's like we have to get to them, and like sort of a thing there, and then the Hulk comes down having saved people, and so it was a whole like meta joke.
that's
Um,
cool.
but there's so many things with his character, but his whole dynamic with Bruce Willis is truly just this man to man, almost like I need to keep your head in the game. I need to help you through this. Is one of the best things of this movie. And
Yeah,
I don't know if you have more to say with the arc. I know you were bringing up that whole moment with him and the kid,
yeah.
where you kind of trying to indicate with the I know we got distracted with your tank top.
Sorry about that.
Were you, oh no, I'm mesmerized. And
No, so
so
yeah, you have that moment, which again is another plant and payoff at the end, and I remember watching that and going, I love the moment, but it's one of the things that I don't necessarily love how we got there, because it's like the movie's done and then a dude pops up out of nowhere and I was like, oh, that's the 80s camp that I was looking for here, what I thought I was getting into. But okay, I still like it. Good job. And
yeah,
yeah, and I think that another thing that he does really well is you've got John in the building fighting the terrorists and trying to get them out of there, and you have Al downstairs fighting the real villain of the film, which is toxic masculinity. He's up here giving John McClane therapy and giving him a healthy, safe space to process the emotions and recognize the negative patterns of behavior that caused the end of his relationship with his wife. And if he didn't process that, they would not have ended up together at the end of the film. He's the king. He's the king.
He is the king. He is the
Carl
best
Winslow.
friend you want. To Carl Winslow.
And the fact that they become best friends, he shows up again in the second film, and John McClane just calls him. He's like, "Hey man, can you like scan these fingerprints for me?" He's like, "Yeah man, no worries. I'm at a desk. I'll do it for you. No problem."
Yeah, like, and the thing about like his character in this one, and like Al just is so good because also you really see him as it begins because he's like, I don't know who you are. I don't have any reason to trust you. And then it slowly has this moment of just continuing to go through the movie
Yep.
that you really do find like what he's about and what, sort of you realize his connection there. And then we got to talk because we're talking about Big Out. We got to talk about the goddamn FBI people. We got to talk about like the goddamn LA police captain. The LA police captain is one of the funniest characters in this film of how incompetent that man is.
Yeah.
He's in that actor is great. He was another 80s that guy because he was also in Breakfast Club. He was the principal.
Of course he was. That's where I knew him from.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and he's so good in this role. as I don't know about this, Al.
Agent
I was
Johnson.
gonna.
No, the other one. No relation.
Okay, you gotta know. This was also a little bit of 80s just like casual racism. Was a little bit of like, you gotta know, because I thought about that joke a lot of Agent Johnson, know the other one. You gotta know what the line on the other end of that phone was.
Yes. Yeah.
And like, that's the thing is, I'm like, huh? Like, but that is a very funny line.
Do you know what it
Like,
reminds me of? Thinking about it is, have you seen the movie The Other Guys?
yes.
It reminds me of the two like badass cops that are there.
Oh,
They're like,
yeah.
oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it, and then they're like, we're gonna jump, we're gonna do the thing, we're gonna jump, we're gonna land in those plants, and then just gone. That's the vibe that these characters give off.
Oh, these characters absolutely do that.
The white Agent Johnson was the bad guy in The Mask, and the other one had a minor role in a Lethal Weapon movie. Fun fact. And that's the end of their careers, David says.
That's funny. But my favorite thing about this whole thing is that, like, so you have that, but I love the LA police captain, because like him coming up and being like, one of my favorites is when John McClane saves those guys with the explosion, like the C4 explosion, which is just also, I love his dynamic of being like, I thank you, Mr. Cowboy, I will take that under advisement, hit it again. And then he's just like, take this under advisement, you jack off. And he just tosses a chair down the goddamn elevator shaft.
Yeah.
And then I love the explosion. And then the guy comes over and he, like the typical white man he is, comes over and just like, it's just like, hey, I don't know who you think you are, sir, but you just destroyed a building. I got a lot of people down here and they're now covered with glass. And then John McClane says, well, we're all thinking, glass? What the fuck is this? Who the fuck is this? And just go like, and I love Argyle at that point listening in on the conversation, being every audience member in the theater when this is happening. When he goes, quit being a part of the problem, like going over, like, you know, quit being part of the problem. And Argyle's just like clapping at in the goddamn, like, you know, like the fucking
it's so good.
car garage.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think that to what you were talking about before, I know we've covered it already, but just like going back to it for a second, like the effects related to the vehicles are fantastic. The way that helicopters explode and crash into buildings, and the way that cars fall off of edges, and and again, it comes back to those like regulation things. So I'm like, you know what? If you told me that that Carl Winslow was in the car and they just put it in reverse and just told him, all right, reverse, you're gonna be fine. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised, especially the way he like falls out of it one scene later. It like I don't even know if it cuts actually between there. It probably was him in the car. After this movie, they created stunt people. Up until then, I don't think it was a thing.
Up until then, it was, you want to do this, and they're like, sure.
Yeah.
And you know, but the thing that I feel is, it's so good with that, and then adding to it the news reporters and the anchors, like that's such an unexpected part of the movie too. And again, comes back into play later when like the kids are on TV and the whole thing plays out.
My god.
It's just so,
that news reporter, another character who comes back in the second film actually and does the same thing, and it works so well.
Oh,
dude, like
I love it. I love it. And like but one of my absolute favorite, obviously we cannot talk about this film without talking about Hans Gruber.
Sure we can. So the next topic was time.
So anyway, yeah.
No, tell me. Alan Rickman, the late Alan Rickman. It's a fantastic performance. Is the first part. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that,
what your thoughts on this, because I'm sure that you've watched a lot of the top 10 videos I have. I'm sure like a lot of Hans Gruber, you knew the character before you even saw the movie.
Yeah, absolutely, I did. And he is really interesting. And one of the things I thought was really interesting about him was that he's got this. He's like European, but like it doesn't feel like any real language. And when I went into the fun facts for the film, it's not. It's like gibberish they're talking. It's meant to sound a little bit European from a bunch of different countries because they didn't want to demonize any one particular country, which smart play, but undisclosed location they're from.
As in Top Gun Maverick, the enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
What enemy? We don't know. Where are
Yeah.
you going? Undisclosed location. Like, is that progressive? Kinda. And like I do agree with that, and I think it was the right play. And I think that that's actually one of the cool things about the film is I love how they pose as terrorists,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not really terrorists. Like
Yeah.
they're not. They don't. They are thieves at the end of the day. Like they are trying to do a bank heist.
Yep.
That's what they're doing, but they're trying to use the cover of being a terrorist,
Exactly. And I find that
which is one of
really
the most
interesting.
It was one of the most interesting things about the film to me was Hans Gruber's whole plan.
Uh-huh. And that's something that Die Hard 2 does really well as well, is this, what's the bigger plan here? Like, what are they actually doing? Why are they doing it like this? It's also really good. So it seems to be a staple of the series a little bit. They're like, things aren't quite what you expect, but they are what you expect enough to give you an action film.
They have enough of the trappings that keep
Yeah.
you invested.
And one of the things that this film does that makes me like it a little bit more than Die Hard 2 is the villain. Because in this one, the villain is like the brains of the operation. Like, he doesn't really, like, he can't do much against John McClane when it comes down to the fight aspect, but he's a smart guy. In the second film, the villain is just a tank. Like, he's introduced not through the way that like Hans introduced. He's literally introduced naked in his hotel room doing karate, watching his TV, and then he needs to turn off the TV, so he goes like this, and he goes whoosh, and he grabs the remote really quickly and turns on. He's like whoosh, and turns off the TV, and I'm like, oh, that's who the villain is in this one. Okay, we'll see what. And it's still pretty good, but there's something about these guys are so different. It's watching a Marvel film where the bad guy is Zemo versus the bad guy is Iron Man, but black. Not black, but like, you know, like big gray villain is what I mean there.
Yeah, but glad you corrected yourself at that moment there.
Yep.
It's
Shut up.
Clear,
Shut up.
To be clear, you mean it's Iron
villain,
Man, but in a bigger gray suit.
Exactly, where the villain has the exact same skill set and powers as the hero. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, so when they are different, it's more interesting.
You're correct. Like I will say, as good lord, but as
Merry Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas. But as we continue, like my favorite thing about Hans Gruber is Alan Rickman plays him with such grace.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about it is it's also like a big staple of the film is that all of the there's a fixed number of henchmen.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I think it's like 12
or something
like that. Like, like, and what I love about that is because there's a fixed number, all of them have a little bit of a personality that you start to get to know, even if they're very quickly on screen. You have the black guy who's very, very charismatic, very much like this whole thing there. And then you have obviously like the blonde Fabio-ish, German guy.
They have brothers there, yeah. That's why brothers. He's got brothers. The first guy who he kills.
The vendetta there.
Yeah.
Like you have, and again, going to what you're saying is it's multi-nationality, multi-ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a diverse group of villains. The villains were very inclusive.
Yeah.
And
we're sticking it to the man, like not to America, I guess. You know what I mean? Like
like sticking it to the concept of power.
Yeah.
And like what I love about that is that fact of like Hans Gruber plays that aspect of those characters very well, to the point where at the beginning you are confused because he's like saying one thing to the CEO, but then to the whole group of hostages, he's saying another.
Yeah.
And you're slowly started, but he says it with the same like consistency and tone that it confuses you as an audience member, where it's like, wait a minute, but weren't you just saying this earlier? And him saying, who said we're terrorists? Who said, like, that whole thing of going, I am going to count to 3. And just sort of that there will not be a 4. You know, like that's
Yeah, he
that.
doesn't have to sit there and go, I'm going to count to 3 and then I'm going to blow your brains out. You know, it is that calm demeanor.
And he has like one of my favorite lines is him going, "Oh, Armani, I have two myself." Like,
Yeah.
like that, just him
It's
being
such a
like,
great
"Oh,
suit.
it's like,"
Hate
and
to get
it
blood on
just
it.
it really kind of, and I think he kind of, I don't know about the context of this because obviously, like, we weren't there in the 80s, so I don't know if this affected writers at the time, but I can imagine this kind of not invented, but definitely popularized that type of villain in
Mm.
media. Like having this kind of charismatic villain,
Hmm.
this kind of charismatic, smart villain,
Yeah.
and
Beyond just big bad from the
big brute,
deemed.
I
Yeah.
can punch you, like,
Yeah.
kind of guy, like, which it felt like the rest of the action movies kind of genre was dominated
Hmm.
by. It kind of felt like, oh, we can do something smart, we can have this guy try to outthink our hero. Like, one of my favorite moments is when John McClane finds him, and it's that moment where he's like, oh god, oh please, 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 like don't, oh, you're one of them, you're with one of them, like. And I'm like, that's fucking I remember watching this in the movie, like watching this the first time, being like, oh my god, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And
him
that actually,
pretending to be a hostage.
that was one of the things that I didn't know about the film. And that scene, I was like,
Hmm.
oh, oh, you cheeky man. And then when he gives him the gun, I actually had a sense of dread. I was like,
Yeah,
this is bad. Like,
same.
and it kind of, at this point, you go, I know that John's probably not gonna die. You know, there's 5 films. Still, I don't know what kind of damage this person can cause to anyone else. Maybe he kills Al. Maybe he kills his wife.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. And him getting the gun, and then that moment of him going, "It's okay, I've got it," and turns around. When he pulls the trigger and it's empty, I almost leapt to my feet in the theater. I'm actually was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it! You got him! You got him!"
it was a moment where you do have that little bit of it, because I've seen that done in stuff like Mission Impossible, and I feel like it's done to a cheesy extent where it's like, oh, rip off face. Oh, I was actually me the whole time. It's like this film, it actually feels very honest from both characters' perspective of
Yeah.
being like, I don't think John realized at the beginning, but there was that Bill Clay moment that I think he did realize.
Mm.
You're this fucker, aren't you? Like, like, it's sort of a thing there. And I do, but one of my favorite moments in that scene is when he goes, no bullets. What, you think I'm fucking stupid, Hans? And then you hear the elevator go off and he's like, you were saying? It's just the timing of it for both characters. It's
Yeah.
just so good that it's just like, and then as you said, like the shoot the glass moment happens. And oh my god,
I
that
felt
moment
it.
where Bruce
I felt it.
Willis is taking the glass out of his feet, and he's like, "What'd you run your captain's foot over with your car?" And it's like, oh my god, like, it is such an emotional moment
Mhm.
to happen in that gate like stage in the film, that I just am in shock with, like, just how that all goes down. And it Hans Gruber has just this brilliance there. And again, I love how all of the characters make an impact in this movie. Whether it's the hostages, like you have that one guy who's like the depressed stockbroker who goes in there and is shot because he like basically
The
is
guy who was trying to hit on his wife.
yeah.
I told him we're good pals.
Yeah, and I love that moment where he's like, where all of a sudden he's like, what did you tell them? And then he's like, "I told you that you were my guest at the party." And it's like, "No, that was not what I wanted to hear. That was
He's
not."
lying. He's lying. He's bullshitting.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know this
just
guy. It's like you had
and
no
just
idea what you thought was gonna happen here, and he did it.
yeah, and it's that thing of like, "Oh my god, you revealing yourself in any way to these people is the wrong move."
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's why I love this movie. This movie's so good.
The way he's just doing cocaine when they walk in to the room as well.
Just casually.
I love the way that the CEO looks at him. He's like, "Have you met John McClane? Holly's John McClane.
husband?
Holly's policeman, John McClane.
Holly's policeman. Yeah. Yeah, I do like how it's not husband, it's Holly's policeman.
Yeah.
Like and it's that moment of going and also, as David pointed out, the watch, talking about another planted payoff, where like
I
the
wanted to
whole
come back
thing
to
of
this too. Yeah.
yeah, the Rolex. Also, fun thing about Hans Gruber, you want to talk about other regulations? You know the face that he makes when he falls?
I know.
Did you read the fun fact about this?
Do say it. Do say it. It's very
So,
interesting.
they said that they're gonna let him go, like drop at 5. Like they were counting it down.
Yep.
But they let him go at 3.
Yeah.
And it was a thing and so that face that he makes is legit unexpected.
He was angry about that too, right? Like real life angry.
Oh yeah. Understandably so. That's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. It's beautiful. But actually another fun fact that I read was that similar to when we were talking about past lives a couple of weeks ago, there was no rehearsal between Hans and John McClane. All of those scenes weren't done until they were done. So they didn't meet until they met. They talked when they talked. Yeah, I love that that's something that has been in for a while. Like they've been doing that for a while. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense because, you know, a lot of the tension is not like, and I honestly know, having been on sets, I don't think how much of that is like legit. How much of that is legit? How do you put it? I don't know how much of that is like legit. Oh, creative intention. We separated them until this moment of filming. Like obviously with past lives it was.
Yeah.
But with this, I think it's just no, they literally were not in the same scene. Literally, we do not have a reason for them to be in the same scene until we do.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it just was more a matter of scheduling.
Mm-hmm. And the same sort of thing does happen with past lives too. And I sent you that video the other day where Greta Lee's talking with Andrew Scott.
Yeah.
And she's saying that not only was it that, but they also were like, don't touch. Like the first time that they touched was like that hug at the end of the film, which you feel it. And obviously Andrew Scott talking about like the intimacy within that film is so beautiful. Such a great video.
Yeah. Affirming aceness.
That's it. And Elizabeth says, I wonder if it's legal to lie to someone like that. And Elizabeth, you do what you have to do to get the shot. Whether it's legal doesn't matter. 80s. I watched Blackberry yesterday, and this guy gets offered $10 million in backdated stock options. He's like, is this legal? And it just sits on Glenn Howerton's Jim Balsilly's face. And then it just cuts to the next scene. I was like, no, it's not. But in the next scene, the guy walks into the building. He accepted it.
Absolutely fucking not.
I bet you're wondering, was any of this legal? Absolutely fucking not.
No, exactly. And that's like, but I guess going down to what you were talking about, I know that you wanted to also talk about the psychology of propaganda that this film has, and I really want to know sort of what, obviously, like I have a feeling I know where you're getting at with this, but I wanted to give you some space to kind of let's talk about the themes of toxic masculinity, and as well as, you know, obviously the propaganda of it all.
Yeah, well, obviously for people who don't know what propaganda is, it's a colloquial term for films and TV that portray policemen and women or police people in like a positive light, which, you know, for the most part, like the job is supposed to be a positive thing. However, if you've lived over the last however many years, we understand that there are some deep flaws in those systems, and that comes to a head in things like Brooklyn Nine-Nine being a show that was propaganda, and them deciding based on light of issues and all these kinds of things, we want to handle that as much as we can, but now it doesn't feel right for us to continue, so they close the show down. That's not so much what I want to talk about here, but more relating to a lot of the aspects of what potentially cause policemen to go down the kind of wrong path are the things that were also causing damage in John McClane's marriage. And you see that from like the opening, where he's unwilling to accept that Elizabeth talking to Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's unwilling to accept that his partner was able to have a career and be her own sort of person. He's like, I've got it. Like, I'm the cop. I'm the man. I can do this. And that doesn't really allow him to separate from his ego enough to just go with her. And he doesn't recognize that until, this is another thing around the toxic masculinity, where until the point of, I am probably going to die in the next half an hour, do you willingly connect with your emotions and process that? And on top of that, with another man is what it needed to be done. He could only do it with the homies, you know? So I like how the film balances
we kiss the
this.
homies goodnight.
Exactly, it's not gay. We talk about how you balance out the incompetent police characters with even the one who's not incompetent. You know, John McClane's our hero policeman. But even so, he has those negative traits within him. They're part of his character. I found that aspect of it really interesting.
It does, going to your point, like obviously it does drift into propaganda, but as you and I were talking about, like I think that at least with John McClane, like what I like about his character is he is so frustrated with the policeman in this movie that it does kind of go into him being a cop is not rah cops.
Yep.
It's an explanation at why he's able to use a gun.
Yeah.
It's an explanation as to why he thinks the way he does,
Mm-hmm.
and why it's not just some random guy
It's like
who's able to somehow now be able to defeat these terror. Like,
Yep.
he's not a badass hero. He just happens to get the jump on some people, and a lot of times he is damaged. He has no shoes. Yep. He is almost killed several times.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's brutal, and and I think that in the other cops in the movie, except for Al, which Al even talks about the fact that he actually shot a kid.
Yeah.
And talking about that it was a mistake, and talking about that cops do that.
Yeah, it's like, well before its time, and you could look at that as just, oh, it's a very simple little thing just to make sure that our character's not in there. But like, that's a pretty heavy theme. Yeah, like the character that's is the first cop on I was gonna say on location, but on the scene cannot shoot a gun. He just can't because his brain won't allow him to, because he's so royally messed up earlier and is holding on to so much guilt. And honestly, thinking about it now, I'm sitting here going, Al has helped John process stuff, but John has helped Al process stuff enough so that at the end of the film, he's actually able to complete that arc. So yeah, you have this thing where, as you were saying before, John is a cop. John is the hero. John is not the hero because he's a cop. Cops aren't the heroes. It's one of those things of just, what's the word? It's like the serendipity of it, you know? It just so happens, you know?
It's a character trait. It's
exactly.
Not, this character is not, and that's why it's tough, because I know that these conversations do require nuance and do require, you know, these things there. And I do think that for the time, by our standards today, when I said this is more propaganda, but I think this is incredibly progressive for its time.
That's it. That's the point. And I suppose we should also say, while we're talking about these topics in a very general way,
that's a very good point.
It's
sorry. Just to put this in there before,
correlation doesn't equal causation.
The autistic pal, one of my good friends on TikTok. Correlation doesn't equal causation. I do think that applies here, but continue with what you were saying.
No, you're exactly right. And as I was saying, to that point a little bit, like we talk about these things in very general terms, but it is also one of those things where, you know, if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. Yeah, like we're not sitting here and going, every one of A is bad, therefore this is exactly what the autistic pal was saying there. It is just something that I found interesting as part of the story at this point in our timeline of human history. I did not expect that. If I saw that in a movie today, I would go, yep, I know where that's come from. You know, we saw it in the later episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and stuff. But you have, these aspects of like a policeman, like really royally messing up and people abusing their power a little bit and doing things like bringing attack choppers to a building where there's civilians. And when he says they're on the roof, give or take, we'll lose like 25% of them. It's all good. I was like, my God, the way that you are actually making up a statement in your 1980s action film starring Bruce Willis interesting. I like this,
well,
and
yeah,
that's what I really wanted to sort of talk about there.
and just to kind of wrap in that, like one thing that I think is interesting is it also shows, because it was similar to when I watched The Wire,
Mm,
and I was realizing, how, because when you're growing up with these things there, you don't, when I was growing up, because I'm white, I was not privy to a lot of these conversations. That
mm,
just was not. I didn't have to think twice about my skin color with like a cop or things there. I didn't have to think twice about this stuff there. I didn't get until I was older when I was realizing that there are people that really go through this. And I know that might sound ignorant of me, but I just did not know. And it was a thing there of what I think is very powerful about these stories is you go back and you watch them and you realize this is not unfortunately, this is not a new conversation.
yeah,
It's just, it's more popular to talk about it now,
yeah.
and it seems like we're really focusing on trying to fix it. We're not obviously there yet, but we're trying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that to your point
But like the fact that this was even in the movie at all shows that there was this problem even. And not that
that's it.
anybody would be shocked, and I'm not trying to sound like, oh, this is a revelation, but it's just clearly to anybody that's like, oh, why are we making things about this? I'm like, this was a theme back
Yeah.
in the 80s.
It's exactly
You know?
that. It's the go woke, go broke, like mentality of like if you go and
Yeah.
make things political, then nobody's gonna watch your movie, sweetie. What was it? Nearly 2 times its budget back, 8 times its budget. No, what was it? 25 million up to 140. So what's that? 4 times?
Yeah, like what are you
six,
talking
six,
about?
7 times its box office, its budget back at the box
Yeah.
office. And this is arguably a pretty woke movie. Just saying.
Yeah, I would agree.
Just saying. It has a strong female character.
Oh, yeah.
It
Well,
has
which also
themes of obviously like police overstepping their bounds and like abuse of power.
also even like I was joking about it before, but even the casual like 90s or casual 80s racism was like one of the lines was actually I thought this was actually a pretty good fire back, was Bruce Willis is casually Asian phobic to the guy there being like, I didn't know they celebrated Christmas in Japan, but then the guy just returns it right back at him, is going, hey, well, listen, Pearl Harbor didn't work out, so we got you with tape decks. And just was like, that actually, I was like, okay. Like, it was one of those moments where you look at that and you're like, okay, that actually was like,
Yeah.
at first I thought, are you just going to be casual? Okay, so is this movie just going to be casually racist?
Yeah, it's
And
gonna
then
be
it's
one
like,
of
no,
those.
the guy fired right back at him. And it
It's
was like,
very self-aware, while also at points taking itself quite seriously. But for the most part, like that's what I found really interesting. And yeah, like it'll take us into kind of our next point, which was your like talking about the tone and the camp and that, because we're talking about the film and the time that it came out. A lot of films from the 80s and early 90s have that kind of like feel to them. But yeah, like do you have any other like thoughts on that or anything else you want to touch on before we dive into our last sort of topic?
oh, well, I think we got to go dive into the because I feel like all of this is really exemplified, like as we were talking about, with all the characters, the meaning, the messaging, the themes, the location, everything contributes to this incredible tone that this
Yeah.
movie has, which has camp to it. But this is like one of those films where they really take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
It's one of those films, it's similar to like when the first Deadpool came out.
Mhm.
First Deadpool not only was aware of the subject matter, but it was aware of the comic book genre as a whole. And it came out just at this right time when we were ready to start making fun of it. When we were ready to start acknowledging where these films were falling short,
Yeah.
and where these films were doing this, where it was enough in the public zeitgeist to be able to earn this. But unlike Deadpool, which is my controversial opinion, this actually innovates, and actually innovated the 80s superhero genre
Yeah.
to being, because I felt Deadpool was meta but didn't add anything new to the conversation.
Yeah,
It
it was
just
just going,
really,
I noticed this. It's not actually
I
saying.
noticed this, but I'm not doing anything about it.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
But what I really love about the um what I really love about Die Hard is Die Hard saw the 80s action movie, and I can imagine the director being like, I've done these other 80s movies, I've done these other things there, I want to try something more grounded. Because you have like stuff like Rambo, which is surprisingly grounded. Like the first Rambo is surprisingly grounded, but not to this degree. This degree, as you said, we feel like John McClane in the first movie, but there's no sequels yet. We feel like this guy could fucking die at any point. But the tone is there. They establish it in the beginning when it's like, oh, it's a Christmas theme. And going back to the whole thing of, is this a Christmas movie? I firmly believe it is, because the messaging and the theming it's not just happening to be there, but it's involved in puns. It's involved in the setting.
Mhm.
It's involved with why it's a problem this is happening on Christmas.
Yeah.
It's involved with why they're there in the first place, to have this whole holiday party. It is just such a unique thing, and I think that also by using the Christmas theme, it disarms the audience,
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, Christmas, why, like, this should be a happy time, and it puts an extra level of danger onto this, because nothing is sacred, nothing is safe in this film. Like, these terrorists don't even care about the fact that it's Christmas, you know? Like, it's sort, again, like, as David says in the chat, you know, you have the "now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho" line, which is obviously an iconic moment of the film. Uh, but I think that the film does a great job of taking the tropes of 80s action movies, but subverting them by having shit like the rope tying to myself. I'm going to tie myself to this rope. All of a sudden it breaks. And the whole thing, like the whole fire hose comes rushing towards the, like, you know, the railing, and he has to swing in. And then once it falls, the, you know, wheel falls over it, or the fact that he doesn't have any shoes on. All of this requires camp. All of this kind of goes into that. So I want to know what you felt, because you were very much also impressed with the camp and the way that
Yeah.
this all plays in.
Yeah. Well, like I said, at its core, like, it is so absurd to consider that a man in his underwear and no shoes took down a bunch of terrorists, right? That's your first part.
Yeah.
And to take that premise, which is completely absurd, and run with it in complete seriousness, is the first way that this film just ticks that box. From there, you have the feeling of a character just sitting and talking to himself. I know that we have internal monologue a lot of the time, but I won't sit here when you're not on the phone and go, damn it, Nathan, why you sucked on the podcast today, or this wasn't as good, or that. I'm not going to sit here and like talk like that to myself. It doesn't happen. And obviously you can't do that in a film, so you have to suspend a bit of disbelief. Like, I don't know, maybe he was talking in his head the whole time that he's talking out loud, and that's just for us, or maybe he was just talking out loud and that's how his character works. You know, it doesn't really matter. That being said, it's silly to talk to yourself. However, it works so well in this film because he's saying what I'm thinking. And
Yeah.
it's set up so perfectly, and you've planted all the right pieces up to now that there isn't necessarily a way that I could have thought anything different. I'm on the same page as you. I'm sitting here going, how are you gonna do this? This is absurd. Like, there's no way that this is gonna work. And he's going, man, how am I gonna do this? This is so absurd. I'm like, nice. And you do have those. You have those
he does that so well.
Action 80s one-liners that just are a staple of the genre. That these days they try and recapture that magic in movies sometimes, and you don't get heaps of it. You know, like John Wick went the route of having your character just not talk much at all.
Yeah.
It's just all action and him going, yeah,
Guns.
yeah, lots of guns, yeah, and it just
Yeah.
it's like for it to feel serious, the creators of John Wick felt they needed to not do that at all.
Yeah.
And this has the capability to feel serious and actually feel like there are stakes and have some weight to the action. And yet, we're still good. You know? We're still good. So, I loved how it managed to balance that tone between 80s camp and, like, serious moments. And it actually kind of reminds me a little bit of how, like, Taika Waititi does things, where there's a lot of this disarming comedy, and then there's a pair of shoes hanging in center frame, and you're like,
Like, you did such a great job at luring me into a false sense of security.
Exactly. I'm sitting here going, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe. Nobody's going to die. Nothing's going to happen. And then it's like, shoot the glass. And I'm like, fuck, no, don't shoot the glass.
Like, please don't, like, or the whole thing of like, him again, just a very realistic way everybody's reacting to things and doing things there.
Yeah.
And my feeling with it is going even further with that. What I really love about this film, and just with the tone, as you're saying, the one-liners, the stuff there, like it looks you in the eye and it just goes, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it does not flinch. It does not like take a moment for you to, like, it acknowledges it, it does it, but at the same time, Bruce Willis just pulls off the impossible, where when he talks to himself and he does like the line of being like, oh yeah, come on, I'm gonna like I'll kiss your fucking Dalmatian. Like, you feel
Beautiful.
it.
Yeah.
And you feel that moment. And that's the thing that I feel really sets films like this apart from others.
Yeah.
And why I feel like this film, it's not just him though. Every character leans into it. They lean into the Christmas jokes. They lean into the things there. They go with this whole thing. Even, the guy going, oh, and the quarterback is toast. Like, works in a dumb way. It shouldn't. This movie shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, going with it, I do believe it is a Christmas movie, because it absolutely leans into all this camp. It leans into all these things there. And I don't know. Is there anything else you have to say that before we move on to cinema a la carte and final
really
thoughts?
like, I think that we've covered the fact that the film was shot in essentially one location, and on like location too, like it looks and feels very real, and a lot of the effects are done in camera, which again, I didn't expect the level of explosions in this film that I got, like
and how
like
real
that
they
last
feel.
Explosion is a big explosion, and these days outside of like a Nolan film, you don't really get that. You don't. There was actually, it was the shot in No Time to Die, I think it was the last Bond film, where they had the biggest explosion from special effects in like history. That looked so great. And I've watched a lot of like the Corridor Crew videos, as VFX artists react videos. They're pretty cool. And one of the things that they talk about is like, sometimes you look at something and it looks real, and sometimes you look at it and it looks fake, but you just don't know why. And one of the core aspects they talk about, particularly in explosions, is like, you don't realize how bright explosions are, and you don't realize how bright like muzzle flashes are, because they're little explosions. Like, it is at its peak, the highest white point of brightness. And in an explosion, if you want to tell why does this explosion look fake and why does it look real, it usually has to do with the fact that with a real camera, if I put an explosion there, it would blow out your exposure. It can't not. There's just no way that I could light something to the highest white point behind UK and it wouldn't blow out your face.
Yeah.
And when you have a CGI explosion, you don't have that as much, because they have the ability to go, I want the explosion to look really sick. I want the smoke to look awesome and the fire to look cool. But with a real explosion, you don't have that. And that's what, like, particularly that last shot where he's completely silhouetted by the fact that he's completely blown out by that explosion, reminds you that this man did not jump in front of a green screen, okay? He nearly died jumping off a building when they had that amount of C4 there. It's
Bruce
very
Willis
impressive.
almost died for your entertainment.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Like, and so, but with the, and I guess I do want to ask you, with going to wrap this all out.
Yeah.
Obviously, this film was a lot of camp and a lot of great things there. Now, and this might be a little bit of a difficult thing, but moving on to our favorite new segment, Cinema a la carte. Welcome. We're going to go into our dining experience. Can I interest you in an hors d'oeuvre? Let's make sure now. Cinema a la carte is
What would we pair this wine with?
where we pay this wine of a film with wonderful food that would
Yeah.
be just as enjoyable to consume with it. If you have seen it, if you haven't seen it, these are films that we try to be unique. We try to find interesting ways. We have a little bit of an out of the box choice, as well as these things there. And as Naf was saying, I do have a couple of pairings. I have one of this. If you are trying to pair this with a Christmas theme. Like, let's say you're trying to get your little family together around the fire, trying to have something there. You're looking for films that are just as sort of out of the box, campy, out of the box, interesting, but still have that dash of seriousness to them. Might I suggest the classic retelling of a Dickens story with Muppets? Perhaps a Muppets Christmas Carol.
Mm.
Because what's it? Michael Caine famously with that film treated the Muppets not as if they were Muppets, but as fellow actors in the film. And so when he said he is going to portray Ebenezer Scrooge direly seriously, he treated it as if it was a Shakespearean Royal Company Shakespeare role. And I think that going off of what we were saying of a campiness that takes itself very seriously, Muppets Christmas Carol is one of the finest examples. But if we want to go for the 80s action movie side of things, I had a couple of sort of, again, leaning into the camp. I had a couple of ideas. This leans into the genre in a way that's unexpected, but ultimately has a similar level of brilliance, if not more brilliant, for what it was able to achieve. Is the Academy Award nominated film Knives Out,
Mm.
like
Fantastic
written
choice.
by absolutely, and
Written and directed by a genius whose name you should say.
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, also acclaimed director of another fantastic, perfect, brilliant film,
You
The
realize
Last
just
Jedi.
now that you
No,
almost forgot.
no, sweetie.
And now my the other one I wanted, we obviously talked a lot about in this one, was John Wick. I
Mm,
think that John Wick would be an excellent pairing with this film as a
yeah.
modern equivalent of what I think Die Hard was to the
Mhm.
80s.
And I think that
And
there are sequences within some of the John Wick films that really line with this. Like, you've got, I think it's the end of John Wick 2 where they're locked down in the building. But
oh
that
my
it
god,
kind
yeah.
of fits this. He's a bit of a, what's the word? He's like the assassin there,
He's
really
cornered.
sharp.
He's
Yeah.
cornered. Like he's trying his best to get out of there. And then with that further, going with another film that really leads into its camp, but also takes itself desperately seriously, is Greta Gerwig's Barbie.
I love that
Uh,
one. Like that connection. And exactly what you're talking about, like the camp versus the seriousness of it. That is my unexpected, but that is a beautiful choice. It's like when you're watching Ratatouille and he's like, you have the cheese and the strawberry, and then together, that's what I just experienced when you said that just then.
uh-huh.
It's a great
So, yeah,
choice.
yeah.
It's a great choice. Hey, if
So,
you like Die Hard, check out Barbie this Christmas.
Absolutely. So on Max or whatever the fuck.
Seriously
And
though, like, you need to grab that clip of Remy with the strawberry and the cheese and put Barbie on the strawberry and Die Hard on the cheese and combine them and put your face on Remy's. You have to do that.
Oh, I will. And
Yeah.
now
But that's my reasons why I like Barbie as a choice.
David did it for us. Die Harvey.
Die Harvey. That's amazing. Oppenheimer. What is it? Yeah, Oppenheimer and Die Harvey. But I kind of stole the thunder for you in that little bit. But why do you choose Barbie as a pairing for this film?
Well, I think it is simply the fact that you have Greta Gerwig famously said they need to treat the comedy so seriously with Barbie. Like, and if you really look at everything in Barbie, it is done so particularly to make sure that people don't feel that this movie is like, I guess, utterly ridiculous. That's
Mm,
like in a way of being like, we have to commit so hard to this bit,
yeah.
or else any part that falls short of it will stick out like a sore thumb.
No, I
And
get that.
that's what I feel. I feel Barbie needed to do that, and it succeeded because of its camp and its
Yeah.
commitment to the bit.
Yeah.
Because it easily could have failed. It
Mhm.
easily could have been ridiculous, but the fact that they commit so hard to it, I feel, is particularly incredible. And now, Naf, you had a couple
I do. I do have
that.
a couple that I just think that they're nice side pieces here. It's like Die Hard is your burger, and your chips or your onion rings and your dip and your little chicken bites or your wings. That's what these side pieces are. They're not
Ooh, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
They're designed to pair with the film. They're not designed to be one to one. If you like Die Hard, you're gonna like these. You know, sometimes people order a burger and they don't order chips. You know, they don't order wings on the side.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, I should say fries for the Americans because I ordered chips when I was in America and I got like
Baked potato chips.
baked potato. Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Like, why would I? Why?
It's fries.
Why?
That's what they are.
Ugh, no. You. Anyway, so my pick first is The Nice Guys by Shane Black. I like that every Shane Black film is set at Christmas time. It's more of those set at Christmas as opposed to Christmas films. However, I think The Nice Guys does fit into a Christmas film a little bit because it has, you know, this family element to it and people coming together and it all kind of ties in there. I think that if you combine Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling's characters, you kind of get a bit of a John McClane.
You really do.
Like, a bit of the, oh, I can take myself a little, like, full serious, but also I'm an idiot sometimes, works there. I think that's a really great film. And then also, kind of the final act of that is almost taken out of this film.
Oh,
like they're at the top of a skyrise, they're fighting there, a person falls all the way down, but into a pool, like, it fits.
It's brilliant.
If you want something that's confined in one space, The Raid as an action film is probably one of my favorite action films of all time. It also inspired Dredd, which isn't a Western remake of The Raid. It's Dredd about the character Judge Dredd. But when you look at the like story beats side by side, it is the Western remake of the Indonesian film The Raid. And the stunt choreographer and main character in The Raid, Iko Uwais, has gone on to work. He does stunt choreography for heaps of things. And he's been in so many films as the villain, but also just as a choreographer. He is incredible to watch. And it's another one of those things where the action feels so realistic and heavy, and death and death and weapons have this like weight to them that feel dangerous, you know? And the last one is Nobody, which is Bob Odenkirk's take.
Our boy Bobby Odenkirk.
Bobby Odie. His kind of take on the John Wick style of, hey, this guy retired and he's back. And I think it's really cool. Also features Christopher Lloyd
awesome movie.
In ways that I didn't think you could feature Christopher Lloyd at his age.
Oh my God.
It's heaps of fun. It's really simple, but it is just heaps of fun. And I think that those three make fantastic pairings for Die Hard.
I saw you have those written down here, and I was like, those were brilliant choices. Like the Nice Guys, I think, is one of the best ones you put there. Nobody as well. Like both of them are in that similar camp of. I think Nobody's a better pick than John Wick. Like
it's funny. I was gonna say John Wick, and then you said it, and I was like, I have to pick something else. So
Nobody, I think is better because I feel like John Wick drifts more into the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Stallone type of.
Yeah,
like
Nobody is
hero.
He just so happens to be that guy.
You are that guy, pal.
Yeah,
you are that guy. But with that said, that has been Cinema a la carte. And now as we wrap up this fine episode, thank you guys so much for being here and joining us. Obviously, Neff, what can viewers expect from us next week as we drift into the seas, as it were, as we go to war in this incredible finale episode of the year? It's not a finale of the season, but it is a finale of this year.
Absolutely, yeah. So our seasons are intergenerational. You know, they continue on. We're looking to end season 2 around about April next year. So we'll still be doing weekly episodes up till then.
Like around April, May. Because should we drop this there for anybody that might be interested?
Nah, let's not. You can wait. But just so you know, there are plans in place. We have guests booked all the way up to the end of March and start of April. So also, if you guys know someone that you would love to see, absolutely, so many great people coming on, which we're excited for, and a couple episodes for me and you as well, which I always love getting back to. But if there are,
you're showing me some favorite films of yours that we have not gotten a chance to sit down and see.
I'm so excited for a bunch of those. Because we've done a heap of yours too, which I have loved
this year has been a really great opportunity to show you a lot of films that have been really important to me.
Yeah,
and I'm really excited to see yours.
among all of the guests that we've got coming on, next week we don't have a special guest. The next 2 episodes, I believe, we don't have guests lined up. It's just going to be me and you. Next week we
So
have
suck it.
a favorite film that you have been dying to show me for ages. And we actually had the chance to watch this together when I came out and visited you in LA last year. Do you want to tell our friends what film we're going to be talking about next week?
Well, I continue my Spielberg indoctrination of NAF,
Bring me into the Spielberg cult.
which I think this will conclude the absolute Spielberg necessities.
Yeah.
With Saving Private Ryan. There are a couple that still I do want to show you, like Minority Report is the biggest other one, but it is a put on the Spielberg on the back burner a little bit and get through some other filmmakers, incredible talented people.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go and do a wonderful, wonderful episode about Saving Private Ryan. It will be our last episode of the year. We pre-recorded it because we won't be we unfortunately will not be able to do it live. We are going to premiere it so you guys can still watch it on YouTube before it airs on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But we will be sort of out of town enjoying the holidays, enjoying things there. But we didn't want to rob you of our beautiful voices and faces. And so we wanted to make sure that you had that there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that episode will air on the 30th of December in PST and 31st of December in AEDT. So yeah, look forward to that. We're really hyped. We loved recording that episode. And you'll also get the reveal of our first episode of next year too. So be sure to tune in there. Now, if you want to find One With The Films anywhere, you can find us at One With The Films. We managed to lock down that name before anyone else did on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, not Facebook because we're new age, and other places too. But most of the places you can find us at One With The Films. We're also obviously here on YouTube, so if you did like the episode, feel free to subscribe. You can put on notifications so you get notified when any new things drop. But most often than not, all of our if you want to follow along on Instagram, you'll get teasers at upcoming episodes, and you can sort of join in the conversation
guess the film
there. Yeah, you can come in, try and guess the film. You can guess when we do our reveals, we do these like ridiculous posts too, so you can try and guess kind of what we're thinking in those posts too. But we love chatting with you guys. Now, like we said, we're actually booked up with guests all the way to like the end of March, which is awesome. But there's still heaps of space post then, and One With The Films is going to continue and stay strong for hopefully years to come. So if there is a creator that you love with a movie that isn't talked about all that often, feel free to reach out to us on any of these platforms and go, hey, tell this person, or obviously tell them to reach out to us as well. We'd love to have or organize a time to have your favorite creators on too. That being said, same goes for yourself. If you have something that you feel needs to be shared that we may not have seen, reach out. We'd love to have at least a conversation in messages with you guys about what you love, and if we can find a way to make it work on the show, we're absolutely going to.
Another thing is obviously you guys see us talk about specific topics on this show. One thing that we kind of are trying to implement a little bit, if you guys are interested, is being able to submit your own things that you want to hear us talk about in this film. Like if you love Saving Private Ryan and you want to talk about the various different things there, like the cameos in the film or things there, like you want to talk about that stuff, and if you want us to cover it specifically, just tell us. We would love to have that be a thing in this as well. And in addition, guys, this has been a year obviously for everybody involved, and especially a lot in the creative spaces with all the strikes and things there. We felt that we really had a great run leading up to up and through Star Wars Celebration, as well as Naf and I getting a chance to meet each other in person for the first time since starting this thing. It's obviously we didn't get to
You
say
didn't
a lot
kill
of this
me,
stuff.
you cheeky boy.
Hey, listen, I tried. I did not succeed.
The guy at Customs told me to be careful. And
he was right. And but like you did prove your worth. So it was one of those things of kind of, it seemed like a better investment. But with this, I want to just thank you guys for those of you who chose to listen to us. Kenny, obviously the Autistic Pal, Elizabeth, everybody there. It's been such a beautiful journey to go on with you guys this year. Thank you so much for sticking with us and really making this year very special for both of us. We love chatting with this. This has been one of our favorite things that we started ever since last year. We've really enjoyed being able to do this. And without you guys, there's some guests that we have coming up that we never would have been able to get before. And it was something incredibly special, and we hope that we're able to continue to improve the show, continuing to be able to do this. If you like what we're doing and you want to just continue to tell us what you like, what you want us to improve upon, things there, we may not listen to you, like that one cheeky comment that came on our YouTube channel the other day. However, keep putting those there, because NAF will turn it into a very funny social media post that actually had me rolling.
Beautiful.
Did you know that we're not cool for talking about films and thinking that they're just underrated little gems? Did you know that, Naf, that we're not cool?
It's beautiful. I knew we weren't cool, but not for that reason.
Exactly. I'm like, at least be more original with why we're not cool. And but with that, guys, Naf, where can people find you?
Well, yeah, I'm at On Second Thought on Instagram. That's the best place to find me, because you can just type On Second Thought. And then from there, you can use my bio to find me anywhere else as well. I talk film, TV, and a hell of a lot of Star Wars. And yeah, like anything I feel like in the moment. Generally, it's just me thirsting over sexy Star Wars villains, but I'll thirst over anyone. It's fine. And you'll see more of me in this beautiful tank top in various stages of undress. That's a lie. You won't. So feel free to come over. And Kate, where can
that's
I find
false
you?
advertising for me. Well, you can find me at your house soon, but I wish that was the case. But nonetheless, I will find you at my house soon. But with that said, I am Movie Man Opinions. You can find me at Movie Man Opinions on any social media platform you so choose, except for Twitter, where you can find me at Movie Man Opinion. And that's me. You can find, I am an expert on my own opinions, and I love Bad Batch. That's basically my personality. And yeah, you can also check us out, obviously, at our social medias at One With The Films. And to go out, as we wish you a happy holidays, I have a quote from my friend Raglan, who says, "Colorful clay is often pregnant."
Colorful clay, often pregnant. Now, generally, I don't understand what you're getting at. And this time I understand it even less.
Good.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. We love having you. We will see you next week virtually, and we'll be back chatting with you in the first weekend of 2024. Have a happy and safe New Year. Take care of yourself. I love you so much. Bye.
Love you.